Pokemon Pocket's second mini set, Triumphant Light, has been released for about 2 weeks now. With it, 96 new cards, and honestly, quite a big meta shakeup when I was originally calling a lot of these cards kind of buns. And with rank mode coming at the end of the month, you might be wondering, what are the best decks I should be using to climb? And I'm here to give you that meta. I'm here to show you about 10 decks, 5 major decks, but 10 decks that you can use for an easy climb when rank comes out later this month. Starting off this list, we probably have the most popular tier 1 meta deck easily. Like if you look at tournament results right now, Arceus EX is everywhere. There are various Arceus EX variants, and I think Dialga is the one that offers the most consistency. You already know, if you guys have been playing the Space Time Smackdown meta, Dialga was actually not as great as a lot of the other decks that dominated. The main two decks was Magrai and Arceus Celebi, and it was just Dialga never really had an amazing partner. Yanmega was a good partner. I'm not gonna be mean to Yanmega. Yanmega was a good partner. However, it required you to run 2 basics plus the evolutions, and obviously like starting Yanma was always never felt good. Finally, with the introduction of Arceus, we have what is quite possibly the best partner for Dialga as of right now. It is a basic, it is 3 energy, meaning the moment that you hit 2 energy on Dialga, you are able to swing right into Arceus. One of the cool things about this deck is it's extremely flexible. This is a deck list that plays really high, but I'm going to show you guys 2 other versions of Arceus. Like this one doesn't run Leaf because of it's running Skyman. The 3 other basics that you will see in this list, we'll show the other list later, is Shaman Sky, the Shaman from last set that heals 10. This Shaman is acting as a retreater, and it's actually really cool synergy. You'll notice that this deck doesn't run any how do you say it? This deck does not run any X speeds or Leafs, and that's because Arceus is a basic, Dialga is a basic, and this is basically a X speed that synergizes with Ultimate Force. For those of you who don't know, I obviously didn't introduce them on. Arceus is a 140 HP basic with a special ability that just means it can't be affected by any special conditions. It hasn't come up too much in the meta, but its move is insane. Ultimate Force for 3 colorless, 70 plus 20 for each bench. It's kind of like if you guys remember Pikachu, except it's more cracked, right? 1 Mon on the bench, which is usually going to be a Dialga, you're already inputting 90, which is what Pikachu needs for a full bench. That's ridiculous, right? Now we have Arceus, Dialga, and this like kind of persisting X speed that gives Arceus it kind of fixes bad starts, right? If you start Arceus, I still think this version of the deck is a bit risky for me. Obviously it is good, but you start like Arceus, you still need to attach an energy to go back. Also, I should mention that the trainers in this deck are super flexible. You'll see a Giovanni just so that you can hit the 140 benchmarks. You'll see a Mars because the moment the Dialga goes down, that's Mars, if you don't know, shuffles an opponent's hand into their deck and draws a card for each remaining point. If you KO a Dialga, that's 2 points. That means you're Marsing them to 1, which is insane when you're already going to be dealing so much damage with this 130. A lot of decks also really love keeping cards in hand. Dialga is a deck that loves keeping cards in hand until, you know, you play your Metallic Turbo combo. Any Celebi deck loves keeping cards in hands. There's a bunch of 18 trainer decks. We're going to talk about one 18 trainer deck later. So this it's really cool to see that we are having Mars finally take its place. Another new trainer that sometimes sees play in this build is Adaman. Adaman is basically a -20 on Dialga, which is just cool. We get damage mitigation. It's like a stronger blue with more restrictions, but still really cool.
The Pokemon tools that you play really depends. Giant Cape puts Arceus over 160, which means it won't get one shot by certain attacks, whereas Rocky Helmet is just good on stuff like Dialga and Arceus for just extra damage and putting everything in range. This deck loves running both Cyrus and Sabrina, because Cyrus, obviously, people are going to retreat as they take this like 90, 110, 130 damage attack. And like Sabrina can also be good in the mirror, forcing a Dialga to go out and like forcing them to be behind a turn. So other versions I'm really, really liking is if I put it over here, y'all are gonna see, bam, this is a picture, which is my fault, but this version runs Mew, right? This is another way that you can run this deck. Notice that this is a copy of 2 Shaman, making you heal 20. It's really, really hard for certain decks to get over this. Articuno 18 Trainers just gets stopped by 1 Shaman. Palkia cannot break through 2 Shamans, especially when they're so Cyrus heavy. The card I mentioned is Leaf, right? You're allowed to run Leaf when you're not running Skyman. Extra Retreats is good. Especially because when you're playing 6 to 7 basics, this list is playing 7 basics, you aren't going to have the best start sometimes. You're not always guaranteed Dialga. Leaf can help fix a bad hand start. So it's really cool to see this list running Leaf. But again, we're learning pretty much the same concepts, right? Giovanni, Sabrina, Cyrus. And I think that's like just like really important to note is that this deck is extremely flexible with the meta. It is extremely hard to deal with, and like I said, I don't see this deck going anywhere. It is just that good. Another list that's very similar to this, this one's just running 1 Shaman, right? And it's kind of doing a lot of the same thing. They just slotted in Mars because Mars is such a good card. I didn't really talk about Mew. Mew in this deck is essentially treated as, in the mirror match, it is another copy of Arceus. However, in matchups that are like can be a little bit tricky, like Palkia, like Charizard, mainly Charizard, you can become a genome hacking that KOs them back. So it's just another card for Dialga to target, and again, Leafs to fix your hand. I think whether you're going to choose to run something like this or something like the Skyman version is just, do you value having more trainers, right? Like this guy opted for double cape, and that's going to be the decision that you have to make. I think the only weakness of this deck we're going to show you guys really shortly is the deck that kind of came in counter in response to this, but really this deck is just so powerful, has so many outs to everything, and there's a reason you go to tournament results, you see this deck everywhere. It is the deck to beat, despite this next decks we'll talk about. A small little addendum to the Arceus. I recently completed the event on my stream, twitch.tv/soulserve. I'll be a link below. I went 5-0, did not lose a single game this event. I know this event is painful for so many people. This is the deck I used. I've already yapped about the benefits of everything, but the deck is just clearly the best deck. It just feels so damn good. My thing is like the Mew EX definitely felt super flexible. The Shaman is really good. Leafs, so good. I did double Sabrina over a Cyrus, and that's because I really thought I had a Cyrus in the deck. But this deck kind of wants 24 cards, and you only have 20 cards. That's kind of the flexibility I'm talking about. But yeah, check this deck out. Of course, I have to talk about the deck that's currently giving Arceus Dialga a run for its money. As of the time of recording, in tournament play, Rampardos Lucario has a 61% win rate versus Arceus Dialga. And you're like, wait a minute, this is so broken. Like, sign me up. Of course, as I feel like as the meta develops, this deck is way easier to counter than Dialga Arceus. The problem is a lot of these decks that beat Rampardos Lucario end up losing to Dialga. So it's this really twisted meta right now where you can use the second layer, the second tier of mod decks like Rampardos. Rampardos is a tier 1 deck, but like decks that beat the best deck, which is Dialga Arceus, but then that deck gets blown up immediately by almost everything else. But this deck sports a really good win rate versus EX heavy decks. The reason why it popped off so hard week 1, it double finaled the biggest tournament, Ursi Day. That's a 1,400 player tournament. It double finaled. You're like, how did it double final? Well, it's quite easy to explain it. It basically it preyed on a meta that was very EX heavy. The first week there's a lot of Articuno 18 trainers. There's a lot of Arceus decks, Arceus Dialgas, and there's a lot of Leafeon Celebis. And all of those decks hate playing against Sudowoodo. This deck finally having a consistent starter and a Pokemon that deals 20 plus 30 if it's dealing damage, if it's facing an EX. And this just chunks. This being a fossil deck means that your odds of starting it are pretty nice, 25%, not counting just drawing it. And then with PCOM for consistency, you will find your main pieces. The biggest piece is obviously Rampardos. I didn't really talk about it, but if you Giant Cape an Arceus, which is 160 HP, a Rampardos that is boosted by Lucario 150 plus 20 for weakness will KO. That is insane. I cannot stress how good Rampardos is as it is right now in the meta. I do think it eventually it will have a fall off, but for as long as Arceus Dialga is good, Rampardos will step up to answer it, and it answers it so damn well. A copy of Sabrina, defensive Sabrina, offensive Sabrina is always good, and just Cyrus to pull things in. You're noticing a lot of these decks do that, but like I said, this deck is really good. Only problem is consistency, right? Like, you cannot search out fossils. You can, this card is unsearchable even with Pokecom, with Pokeball, so it's a card that you're gonna have to draw. And then finally, to get to these two, because these two are unsearchable through Pokeball, you're gonna really need to rely on Pokemon communication. But on curve, if you get everything right, this is one of the hardest decks to play against, straight up. It's just, its curve is insane. Dealing 130 is insane, and you still have the Marshadow to come in for 100, 120 with Lucario when a Sudowoodo drops. So this deck still has other alternate win conditions. It blows. It goes so much higher, the ceiling, when you're able to pull a Rampardos. Other than that, we're going to talk about some decks that this does have problems with, right? I do think that a lot of Leafeon Celebi players are going back to Eggy Celebi, and that is boasting a really nice win rate. We're also seeing an Eggy Arceus deck that does really good into Rampardos. That might be in the video later. But another deck that's actually the new 18 Trainers deck that we're going to talk about just shortly is Palkia 18 Trainers, that is giving this deck a run for its money as well. 18 Trainers Palkia. What is there to say that we already have not said about 18 Trainer decks? But every format is going to bring us an 18 Trainers deck. For those of you who don't know, the way Pokemon Pocket works is you're always guaranteed to draw a basic. So what if you just play the bare minimum of basic, so you're guaranteed a basic, right? In previous formats, Articuno 18 Trainers was the best. Last format, Space Time Smackdown, was Pachirisu EX 18 Trainers there, God help me. And finally, we have, in this set, what is looking to be the best is Palkia 18 Trainers. Let me explain how this works. The biggest card, I think, in my opinion, besides Arceus EX, is Irida. Irida heals 40, it's an AoE heal, by the way. AoE heal 40 damage from each of your Pokemon that has any water energy attached. Very cool. There's a lot of decks that we'll even talk about later that plays with this synergy. And what ends up happening is what we kind of found out is that Rocky Helmet attached to a Palkia is a lot of chip. You're dealing 30 plus the Rocky Helmet is going to get rid of a Pokemon. You have the healing of Irida potions, right? That's in 2 turns, that's 80 health, right? The max you can heal in one turn is 40, 20, 20 plus a cape. But essentially, you're just chunking with Slash, building up either that same Palkia or another Palkia, hitting a Dimensional Storm, hopefully on an EX target, and getting so much value. Why this is so good into fighting is if you looked at every single fighting Pokemon's health, Marshadow 80 HP, Riolu 60, the Lucario, alright, not Lucario, I said Lucario, the Sudowoodo 80 HP. With a Rocky helmet, the moment that they attack you, they faint, right? They faint, and Marshadow won't activate if they faint on their turn. So it's like really, really, really rough for them to deal with this early game. And then you set up a Palkia, that is the second Palkia will usually be Giant Caped, and of course you are going to be able to hit Dimensional Storm for 150, get rid of it. Rampardos does have 150 HP. This being an 18 trainers deck, remember that means that you are allowed to really customize the amount of trainers that you have. I think 2 Sabrinas have always been core. Cyrus is great because after a Dimensional Storm, you can target a bench card and hit it with Slash, or you can Dimensional Storm and then get something else. This deck also supports Misty, which if Misty ever gets popped off, you're just set so much further ahead in your timeline, right? Getting to Dimensional Storm earlier is broken. So this is why Palkia 18 Trainers is currently the best 18 Trainers to go with if you are using an 18 Trainers deck. It is currently the highest win percentage as of recording. And we're also seeing like a Starmie Palkia EX deck that's also doing really good. Water decks are going through a renaissance. We are entering a water meta. No thanks to Irida. Broken ass card. I'll make a quick aside. Articuno 18 Trainers is still really good, still extremely viable, really, really damn good. The reason why Palkia is currently seeing more favor is because the 140 HP means you're so close to just fainting from Arceus's, but it's still really good in a lot of different matchups. Rocky Helmet is the same concept. Again, Irida is the same concept. Basically, water meta is good. I just don't want to talk about Articuno 18 Trainers when it's the same deck from the beginning of the game, but now it has Irida. Do you miss the old fighting deck? The one that had Hitmonlee Farfetch, Hitmonlee pings her back, Farfetch hits the front. You just miss that, right? The new fighting deck is like a Rampardos Lucario deck. It's just different. It's not the same. Well, look no further. Not only do we get to use the Link mechanic of the set, Link abilities all basically gain bonuses when Arceus is in play, usually when Arceus is on the bench. But the idea is that you are playing a grass aggro deck. Notice there are no Ericas in this deck because there's really nothing you're trying to support there. And you're using this Carnivine Rotom combo. Rotom, when Arceus is in play, has no retreat cost. It deals 20 to one of the opponent's benched Pokemon. If that sounds appealing to you, it's because it's pretty baller, right? You are allowed to basically ping something, Cyrus it in later in the game for Arceus to one-shot. Carnivine deals 20, but when Arceus is in play, you deal 50, right? It's the same reason why Sudowoodo is good. So if you got why Sudowoodo is good, you understand why Carnivine is good. This one also running Skymin, but that is so that you can retreat and Dawn. This is one of the decks that really wants Dawn, because if you're going first and you're attaching energy to a Carnivine or a Rotom, those are energy that you really, really want to put onto an Arceus. So this gives you the opportunity. This deck is really, really oppressive when you go second, because you're up energy, you're allowed to attack with a Carnivine, attach to an Arceus. Pokecom is for consistency, because this deck really, really does rely on the ability of Arceus, and Arceus you want to get onto your bench and attaching to it very, very fast. Double Cape, just really good. Put an Arceus over 160, putting these Pokemon at really nice health pools, and then a Rocky Helmet for the road. You're able to really do a 1-1-2 combo of Carnivine, Arceus, or however you really see fit. Very aggro deck, very fun deck. It's probably the best Link deck. If you're looking for an Arceus Link deck, use Arceus Carnivine Rotom. Really, really cool. Again, Skyman's hair. It's a walking X speed. Yada, yada, yada. The last deck we'll be talking about today is, of course, a grass deck. It's Leafeon Celebi. It's a deck that kind of popped off week 1, but is currently seeing a little bit of fall off. But I think is a very interesting deck that has a lot of sustain. And I know some of you guys are freaks for sustain. One of the really cool decks, it is running Leafeon. Leafeon is essentially in the place of Eggy. If you remember last set's Eggy Celebi, Leafeon, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you basically take a grass energy, attach it to any grass Pokemon, including itself. So this deck runs grass water energy so that you can combo it with Irida. Irida heals 40. Remember that AoE heal that we talked about? This is the way you get the most healing in the game using Irida, Erica, Potion. This deck choosing to drop Capes over Rocky Helmet because you have so much healing already. Very, very fun, very goofy deck. That is just going to charge Celebi a lot faster. The way I'd compare Eggy compared to Leafeon is Eggy has a stronger early game. Leafeon, if it's allowed to sit there, will charge up, and it is going to be allowed to sit there when you have Ericas, Iridas, Potions. It is a lot of healing. It is really, really cool. One really cool combo I saw, not on this version of the deck, but another Leafeon deck, is if you run X Speed, you're able to X Speed out, bring in another, activate Forest Breath, bring in another Leafeon for free because of the X Speed, Forest Breath again, in your plus energy, which means you can actually potentially attach 3 energy in one turn to a Celebi. That's insane. Really cool synergies. You can still, of course, switch out. Let's say this is like a fully charged Leafeon, but it's damaged. You can unattach. You can Force Breath, let's say, another Leafeon. Switch out, hard switch, Force Breath this Leafeon, attach another energy, and voila, you have another Leafeon ready to attack. It's a really cool combo. Really strong. It's just currently a little bit weak to the Rampardos Lucario while also being weak to Dialga. So where it's placed in the meta, we'll have to see. I also myself top 16. This is the list I used to top 16 a tournament. I used Giant's Cape because I was really a believer that Giant's Cape matters. You know, I think that Giant Cape getting over the 160 threshold is really good. I made it to the top 16. I felt like I really could have won that tournament. But I flipped Six Tails in the final game to lose. So that was my run. But I thought I'd put my list in because it was a list that performed really well in tournament. PCOM is just a consistency card, you know. Giovanni was so that I can get to 80 damage, which 70 plus 80 is 150. Really cool stuff. Sabrina, really good card. We already know, we've talked about it enough. So many of these decks are running the Sabrina Cyrus combo because fights wear on. Cyrus is great offensively. Sabrina is good defensively and offensively. Really fun deck. This also, I did not run the Irida combo, so maybe that's why I like the Giant's Cape Potion. Erica, so this is like more straightforward. But yeah, this meta is really fun so far, but there's still so many more decks out there to find. Before I end this video, I also want to do a little bit of a lightning round, talking about some older decks and new decks that are still really good at seeing play. Magnezone was one of the best cards in the last set. And it can see play in Arceus decks, Palkia decks, and of course Magrai is still good. A little bit fallen off, but it is still viable. Whether you're using Kangaskhan or Drudigan, it affects different matchups. But it is still very good. Magnezone is unfortunately going to be carrying a lot of the weight, and that's kind of where my opinions are so far in this deck, but it is still Magrai. It is still very strong, a big contender to place high in any tournament. We also have a new Druddigan Gyarados variant. This deck is dropping Greninja in favor of using Iridas and Rocky Helmets, and this is essentially going to do a lot of damage to stuff like Dialga Arceus, to the fighting decks, like a Pokemon like Sudowoodo would KO itself in just 2 hits onto a Druddigan. So this has a lot of benefits going for it. It's going to use Rocky Helmet to kind of whittle you down, and then finally you attach to this Gyarados. The water energies all work on everything, so Irida is pretty much live everywhere you go. It's very cool to see Gyarados finally get a new deck when it's been using the same freaking deck for the last damn 2 expansions, right? Another deck that we're seeing is Starmie Palkia. If you're familiar with how the Executor Celebi stuff works, it's kind of very similar. You're going to play your 2/2 line of your evolution, in this case Starmie, and then have a Palkia. And also, again, Irida makes so many water decks viable. You're going to see a lot of water decks viable just because of Irida, Misty. Again, just really cool. Starmie has no retreat cost, so you can also do some retreat tricks. Whether you're going Starmie into Starmie or Starmie into a fully charged Palkia, it's just very good. This deck really loves Misty. If Misty ever flips 2 heads, you are popping off. Problem is, Starmie's HP being 130 can be a little bit risky, especially when Arceus hits for 130, this deck preferring 2 capes. Another deck that is also on my watch list as of this weekend, we might see it pop off, is Manaphy Palkia. Why is this deck showing up now, right? This is kind of interesting, and let's talk about it a bit. Is that it gives one of Manaphy's biggest problems is the prize map. You are doing 1-2 in most situations and then flopping, right? Like that 1-2 flop is rough. Origin Form Palkia is 3 water energies. A Zone Smash does 60 plus 60, so it's like a stronger Eggy, but it requires more energy to attach, right? With Oceanic Gift, you can kind of charge it up really fast, and you can have this 1-1-2 prize mapping that this deck desperately wants, right? Of course, the similar weakness of being a 120 HP Pokemon means it is going to flop more often than not in front of a Dialga. What are some other good things about this that I'm not really talking about? Manaphy costs 1 energy to charge, so if you're going second versus a Dialga, you're going to get so much energy acceleration. If you're going first versus a Dialga, it is also fine because you're still accelerating at a fast pace. Iridas, Misties are so freaking good. And then again, the Rocky Helmet combo with Palkia kind of just destroys fighting. So very cool to look at. Very cool deck in general. And finally, Eggy Celebi is still viable. I don't have like an addendum to it. It's still viable. But another Eggy deck is Eggy Arceus. And this is like a very just like similar deck to like Eggy Yanmega. So think of it like that. And it uses Celestic Town Elder so that you can pick up a fainted Eggy. Not so that you can use it to fight again, but you can fill the bench for Arceus, and that's what that is going to be. The deck is just you lead Eggy, you charge up in Arceus, you bench everything to deal 130, and of course you have the aggro that no other deck offers like Eggy EX. So it's very cool to see. The benefit of this is that Arceus is 140 HP and you're not flipping as many coins. Obviously, Eggy is flipping coins with upside. Your Erica targets are more targeted, obviously, because you can only Erica a Eggy in this deck. But it's still cool, and again, Celebi works the exact same way. I just wanted to kind of rush through some extra decks to talk about, to yap about for you guys. And there you have it, 10 more decks to use in Triumphant Light. I'm just so excited for Ranked Mode. I wish I got this out a lot earlier, but I was sick. What am I going to do? But I'm still going to make content because I love Pocket so much. I really, really love this game. So I'm glad I get to yap about it with you guys. I guess the only other thing that has changed since the recording of this video is today I made a little tier list. So these are some of my thoughts there. Since this meta has come up, as you see, most of the decks I listed are up here because I don't cap about that. I'll be back. You can always catch me on my stream, twitch.tv/soulserve. I will be playing ranked because I'm trying to be the best pocket player that can be. But outside of that, I'm also going to be signing out. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Bye bye.